So much for joining me this evening. My name is Holly, and I am a certified health coach focusing on autoimmune disease. So, why is a health coach talking about relationships, you ask? Great question. So, chronic illness doesn't just affect our bodies, it also affects everything around us, everything in our environment, and that includes all of the relationships in our lives. So, that's why I wanted to host this to share with you a few tips on how to manage and how to manage our marriage, our dating life, and the relationships around us, because that I find it is so important. Hi, Dinesh. Thanks for joining. So, I also want to say that before I begin, I have a really exciting announcement at the very end. So, I'm going to I'm going to sprinkle a few breadcrumbs throughout to see if you can figure it out. But I'll make the big announcement at the end. So make sure you stay until the end or check the replay after to get the full announcement. Okay, are you ready? Let's dive in. Okay, so for those that don't know me, my name is Holly, and I have an autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis, which is inflammatory bowel disease. I was diagnosed at 19 years old. Oh, let me go back for a second and say that I'm going to start with dating and then we're going to move to marriage, okay? So stick with me. Okay, so since I was diagnosed at 19 years old with a digestive disease, I truly don't know dating without a chronic illness because all of my dating years was while I had a chronic illness. Now, I wish that I could blame all of my dating horror stories on my disease, but alas, I cannot. And then in college, most of the guys I casually dated already knew about my ulcerative colitis, mostly because I was hospitalized a lot. It was the sickest time of my life. And it was a really, really small campus, like 500 people small. So when someone like gets shipped off to the hospital and like kind of disappears for a week, like people kind of know. So it wasn't really a secret that I could keep, but I also didn't really share openly with people. We didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it with anybody, much less like the guys that I dated. And then in my 20s, I just kind of shut down that part of me. Like I managed it very like secretively. I didn't tell anybody about it. I just like did not want it to affect my life, even though it clearly was. So I only talked about it with my parents, like not even really my brother, not like really not anybody. So I hid it from everyone, and so that also includes my dates. So when I would go out on dates, like it just wasn't a topic that came up. And then in my how old was I when I met my husband? We'll say mid 20s. My mid 20s, I moved to California from South Carolina and met my now husband in California. And I think I must have just come to a point in life where I was really tired of hiding it. Like it was this huge giant that I was trying to hide really terribly. And it was just exhausting. And so my now husband, the guy that I was dating, who I'm now married to, he was the first guy that I ever went on dates with that I voluntarily told him about my health. I mean, and I did it in a way that, I mean, if it works for you, it works for you, but it isn't the best way to do it. But I just kind of blurted it out on our second date. We were watching a movie and eating ice cream in my apartment. And I think in like mid movie, maybe mid bite, I just decided I had had enough and said, this is the moment that I'm going to blurt out all of my health history to him and see what sticks and see how he handles it. Didn't have a thought process through that. I just knew that I was tired of hiding. And so on my second date, our second date, I just kind of blurted it out and said, okay, I really need you to know that I have an autoimmune disease. It's called ulcerative colitis. This is what happens when I'm sick. Most of the time I'm not sick, but this is what happens when I am, and this is how I feel, and just blurted it out. And he went home, did his research, came back for the next date. So that was very lucky for me. Turns out he was the right person for me. He was able to handle it, do his research, and say, okay, let's do this. So that's a little bit about my dating story. So I'm just going to answer a few common questions that I've gotten over the last few years and months about dating with a chronic illness. So let's get into it. Okay, so when and how much do you share? Okay, I'm going to pause for a second and get a sip of water. My mouth is already dry. I'm just getting so worked up. Okay. When and how much do you share? Do you share it on like the byline of your Tinder profile? Do you share on the first date, third date, fifth date? Whatever you feel comfortable with. If you feel comfortable with having the headline of your Tinder profile be like ulcerative colitis warrior and survivor, then like power to you. Like, let's do this. Please actually send that to me. Send a screenshot and let me know if that's what you do, because I think that's awesome. But that's not necessary. So I think knowing when and how much to share your illness with a person that you're going on a date with, I think is completely up to you. It depends on your comfort level and where you're at in your health and what this person means to you. So just gauge it and see if it's just a first date and you're still testing the waters. Then don't feel like you need to disclose all of your medical history to that person. Maybe a third date, maybe whatever the best time feels like for you. Or if you are sick and it's something that you do need to disclose and say, hey, I have this chronic health condition where I really am too tired today and I really need to rest instead of going out. Then you can do it in that way. But it's completely up to you and your comfort level. I will say at the very latest, you should share when things begin to get serious. So if you guys become exclusive and you are only dating each other and you become in a committed relationship, that's usually that's at the very latest when you should share what you're going through. It's really just so that they know what goes on, so that they're not completely blindsided when you have to say, we need to go to the ER and they have to rush you to the ER. You don't want that. You don't want to have to be explaining it to them in the car as you're like rushing to the hospital. So how do you do this? How do you share this information? So begin with the high level information. Share more on an as needed basis or as you desire. So start with the high level information. Say, I have an autoimmune disease. I've had it since I was 19. It is called ulcerative colitis. I can spell it for you if you want to research it. But basically, it causes inflammation in my digestive system, and it makes it really hard to eat, and it can be really painful sometimes. That's it. That's all I personally would share. I blurted it out, so I think I shared a little bit more. But you can start with the very high level information, and then if a flare up comes or if you're having a really fatigued day, then you can share more as needed and say, hey, I'm so sorry to cancel plans today, but this happens sometimes when I X, Y, Z. This happens on occasion after whatever. You can explain that as needed and, start dropping more information as you feel comfortable or when it's necessary. Okay, take another sip of water. Dating in a flare-up. We're getting into the good stuff, guys. Dating in a flare-up. Should you date in a flare-up? I can't answer that for you. All I can say is that this is a personal decision that you have to make for yourself. So check in with yourself, really check in and see if you are emotionally and mentally and physically, really, like physically like go out the door and sit at a restaurant or sit wherever, If you are emotionally, mentally, and physically available to begin a relationship, or maybe not even a relationship, can you even emotionally, mentally, or physically handle a date? If any of those are a no, I think all three of those boxes should be checked. You should be emotionally available, mentally available, and physically available to go on a date. If you're feeling nauseous or you have really bad joint pain and you can't go for a walk or sit or stand for a long period of time, or if you're having really bad brain fog and you can't concentrate, and you just can't like mentally or emotionally be present, then that's not going to be fun for either person on the date. And after all, dating is supposed to be fun, you guys. Like, it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to go out and meet new people and have a good time, and just, it's supposed to be fun. So if you cannot be emotionally, mentally, or physically available to enjoy a date, then the answer may be no. Again, I can't answer that for you, but you just need to check in with yourself. And will not only available will you be available for it, but will it be comfortable? Will you be comfortable going for a walk, or will you be comfortable sitting for long periods of time? If the answer is no, then maybe reschedule. Maybe say, I'm so flattered, thank you so much. And you can say whatever you feel comfortable saying. You can ask to reschedule for next week. Whatever you feel comfortable saying, I will leave that up to you. Another tip I will say is keep first dates as simple as possible. Keep them as simple as possible. My favorite first date was always a cup of coffee back when I could have coffee. I no longer can. That's okay. But I would go to the same coffee house and just have a cup of coffee. There is low commitment. There's not a lot of movement, and it can be as short or as long as you would like it to be. So I always recommend keeping the first date as simple as possible for your health, and also because it's a first date, you're just getting to know somebody. Also, be comfortable. Wear something that makes you feel comfortable. For me, my chronic illness is digestive related, so I don't want something restricting my stomach. That's not going to feel good. So I'll either wear some sort of cute leggings, or maybe a flowy dress that isn't restrictive at all. So that would be my also recommendation. Just be as comfortable as possible. Don't wear the heels that are going to hurt your joints just because they're cute. I've been there, done that. Yeah, wear comfortable shoes, pant, bird, a dress, whatever makes you feel attractive and also comfortable. Are you going to dinner? Here's a fun tip. Okay, if you're going to dinner, maybe it's like a second, third, fourth, fifth date. If you're going to dinner, ask to pick the restaurant. Or if you feel comfortable doing it, you can offer to cook for the person. That way you are in your safe space. Or offering to cook is great because you are in your safe space. You know your own home, you know that you have the safe ingredients, and you know that what you're going to eat, you can eat. I'm speaking from a digestive disease focal point. Or asking to pick the restaurant, you can do your research in advance, and you know that you'll have safe foods. You'll know that you're able to eat and enjoy the date. Also, in addition to that, recommend activities that you are able to do. So instead, if the person asks to play beach volleyball, I'm here in LA. If they ask you to play beach volleyball and you know that your joints or whatever it is isn't going to agree with beach volleyball, you can offer to go for a bike ride or on the boardwalk, or go for a nice walk instead of going for a run. I can't run right now. You can offer, can we go for a long walk, or can we go get, chronic illness, so maybe not ice cream, but something else. Can we go get a nice treat instead?